Cashflow Diary Podcast, episode 203.
Welcome to yet another exciting episode of the Cashflow Diary Podcast, the podcast that teaches you insider tips, tactics, and strategies for creating leverage streams of cash flow into your life. Learn from top-performing entrepreneurs, business owners, investors, and thought leaders from across the globe as they share their secrets to success. Like what you learn on this and other Cashflow Diary podcast episodes? Go to learninvestingnow.com and sign up to receive powerful tips and information that will help you succeed as an entrepreneur and investor. Now, here's your host, investor, entrepreneur, business owner, educator, speaker, author, and master facilitator of Robert Kiyosaki's cash flow game, Jay Massey.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Cashflow Diary Podcast. And as you know, we are not done yet. You've said, and I have told you that this is possible. And you said, I think you said, I don't believe you, Jay. So I'm going to prove it to you again with yet another individual who has managed to make and earn $100,000 in a month. I know in your head that can still sound foreign. I've been there. I understand it. But I want your subconscious to get this concept. Whatever you used to earn in a year, imagine earning that in a month. And that is what is possible when you cross over to this other side and begin to build assets that produce cash flow. And today's guest is an expert at doing that over and over and again. And he's been on the show before. So help me welcome back Ryan Moran. Ryan, how you doing?
Doing good, Jay. Thanks for having me back.
You know, it's been a while. It was like episode 56. For those of you who didn't join us there, you can go hear episode 56. You know, that's 150 plus episodes ago, man.
I feel like I'm older and wiser, and my hair is grayer. I've actually had a kid in between those episodes, so I guess I am sort of older and wiser and grumpier and sleep deprived.
Well, yes, definitely sleep deprived because I've got 4 of them. Was this your first one?
This is my first one, yeah.
Woo, welcome to the club. It's only going to get worse. No, I'm just...
I can't. It's impossible. She's 3 months old. It can't get worse.
Well,
maybe when she's 13, then it will be worse.
Okay, so it's a girl. Then it not only does it get worse, it gets more expensive. So both of those things are coming. Just keep being prepared. You're going to start making assets for her. This is her.
Buying guns for me.
Yep.
Boyfriends, yeah.
Yep. And I heard, I think it was Jeff Foxworthy say, you know, guns don't kill people, but daddies with 3 daughters do.
Yes.
And I'm like, yep, I've got 3 daughters, and I know exactly where he's coming from. So for those who weren't here on the prior episode, share with us, if you will, a little bit, catch them up. You know, what have you been up to? What do you do? You know, what's your thing that you go out there to offer the world that creates so much value?
Okay, well, I'm an entrepreneur, and what that basically means is I build assets that generate cash flow, and I attempt to automate them so that it requires as little input from me as possible. Mm-hmm. So I build assets that are usually businesses, and I take the profits from those businesses and I invest them into other assets that you might be familiar with, like real estate or apartments, or I own a restaurant, or dividend paying stock and other places. So I make my money in businesses, and we can go into kind of how those businesses are made and structured. And then I funnel that cash into other places. They're going to, make my dollars bring back some more friends.
Absolutely. And we do want to get into that. But the thing that I want to make sure that we hit first and foremost is, can you remember that first time that you did that month where you had 6 figures in a month, and what that felt like, and how did you get there?
I'm going to be honest with you. For me, it was like hitting a glass ceiling that was not really there, if that makes sense. It was reaching a level, it was proving it to myself kind of thing.
Right.
And once that happens, it's really demystified. I have a buddy who has a lot of best-selling books, and we were on the phone the other day, and he said, when I tell people how I get best-selling books and they realize how it's just kind of demystified, all of a sudden it doesn't have that luster to it anymore. And I kind of feel the same way about hitting 100K in a month. And it's like once you hit that ceiling, you realize, what was this BS story I had made up in my mind about it being hard or impossible up until this point? I guess like I don't feel any different. It felt good. Of
You
course.
you didn't grow taller or anything?
No, I didn't. My lifestyle got more expensive maybe because baby arrived, but
Yes.
found out I was going to be a daddy. But there was never like I feel pretty much the same. Like, the thing I'm confident in, I'm still confident in. The things I'm insecure about, I'm still insecure about. That you don't reach this level in which it's all magical and the clouds part and horses in the sky tell you you've done 100K a month. It's just a thing. It's just a number that doesn't mean anything. But there's so much energy that is put around that there was a sense of like, oh, this isn't so hard. It was it was just demystified for me, and I don't know how to. I wish that there was like a pill I could give somebody that would make them realize, like you attempt to do, which is demystify this idea and show people that it is possible. But I don't know that taking that pill would even create the results that we want, except that I can just tell you that it is not any different than making $10,000 a month. It's just a process of thinking beyond what you knew what was possible and working towards that. And when it happens, it's really not that big of a surprise or a big deal.
No, in fact, it's almost planned to the degree. It's like, this is the month we're going to do this, that, and the other, and to realize that you have that kind of control. I'm sorry to interrupt, but can I tell you on that point?
Yeah. This month, while we're recording this, I flirted with 1 million this month. And I flirted with it. I didn't get it, but I came pretty damn close. And a year ago, 100K was like, hey, I had a good month. Like it was sort of new to me.
Right.
And it feels exactly the same. It's not, it's just not a big deal. It feels the same as when I had my first 10K. So right. I don't mean to like take all the excitement out of it. I really more to just say it's like anybody can theoretically do it.
Right. Well, and that's kind of the point of this entire series has been to show as many different individuals do it in as many different ways as I can possibly find, because it's really not that big of a deal. I mean, you make your birthday, it's an event. Christmas, it's an event. Holiday, right. Special birth of children, that is an event. As an entrepreneur, the idea of having $100,000 of revenue or sales in a month, that's just what you do. That's like entry into the game. It's not that big of a deal. So let's break this down a little bit. What do you think are some of the things that either make it a almost guaranteed lock that people aren't doing or aren't thinking? Like, what are some of those systems that absolutely say, you know what, these are the systems that it takes for me to do it, and that most entrepreneurs should be using in some way, shape, or form in order to achieve goals like that?
Okay, two things immediately come to mind. And the first one is just regular customer or lead acquisition. That there is this sense in a lot of entrepreneur circles of like there's a system that, or like a hack or a loophole for finding the leads and the customers. And that doesn't exist. There are loopholes and there are tactics that work for a while and they change and everybody freaks out. The fact of the matter is you have to be regularly collecting leads and going and marketing for new customers. And those who dial in those systems and get them to work for their business, and it's always a unique process compared to somebody else. If you put in the work to figure that out, you will always beat the next guy. The second thing that immediately comes to mind is I think most entrepreneurs sell themselves too short as far as pricing, and they don't get bold enough to ask for bigger dollar amounts. I'll tell you a quick story. I used to have a product that I would sell that taught people how to buy and sell profitable websites. And I don't talk about that publicly anymore, but I sold that product for $1,000. And I lost so many nights of sleep because I wanted to make sure that everybody who bought this $1,000 program got every ounce of value out of me possible because I was so afraid to take that $1,000. There was like a self-worth issue, almost like I'm not worth this $1,000 people are
Right.
giving. 2 weeks ago, I had someone offer me over $100,000 to teach them the exact same thing that I taught in that, and they asked for less of my time, less of that stress, and it was a very successful person who really just needed a few tweaks in their process, and they offered me 6 figures for that. And what that taught me was that sometimes going after big dollars or even just the product or service you're selling right now isn't a matter of what the product is or anything wrong with you, but who you're targeting makes all of the difference. So if you could charge 10 times the amount of money that you're charging for your product or service just by tweaking the person you were targeting, everybody would do it. And that is the case with a lot of products and services. And I've found that when I change and get really, really specific and say no to everybody else, I'm able to charge way more money. And they have friends that they tell about me, send to me. And then I only get to focus on the people that I really can create the most amount of value in. And they pay the most money to be there. So I think entrepreneurs that are really successful get good at systems of acquiring customers and leads, and they are willing to target the people that will pay the most money. And as a result, they have less stress and they spend less time in their businesses.
Agreed, 100%. I mean, you guys, if you heard me say 5 a day keeps poverty away, right? Then that's basically how it started for me. And I know many of you, you're out there, you don't have the automation yet that we're going to talk about here in just a second, because automation will make the biggest difference, especially in the customer lead and acquisition process, because that it has for us. But 5 yeses a day, that's really where you've got to start. 5 yeses a day. Get 5 people interested in your product every day, all the time, no matter what. I don't care how many deals you just closed, do it again. It's important. Now, so Ryan, share with us, if you will, how does one, go from, the sporadic, we'll call it, lead acquisition to being able to figure out this, what do I need to do to be consistent in that customer acquisition? Because, maybe I don't have a team, maybe I don't have a staff, maybe I'm always bouncing back and forth trying to serve customers. Where am I going wrong? Tell us.
Yeah, the way you're going wrong is you're probably not good at saying no enough. I have a buddy, actually I have several friends who follow a business model where it's just them. They have no staff, or they might just have a customer support person or an assistant, but it's mostly just them. They don't have large lists. They have maybe a list of a few hundred people, and they book rooms at, they book 8 spots at $10,000 every month. And then they have upsells from there. Now, how are they doing it? When I've asked them, they've all said, I'm really good at turning away the people that don't belong there. And I try to get as many people as possible to filter out of my marketing processes before they ever take up any of my time. So I've got one buddy who opens up, like he does podcasts for lead acquisition, and he also does Facebook advertising for lead acquisition. And one of the first things he says is, if you are offended by the F word, turn off this podcast right now, or turn off this sales page right now. If you are not an entrepreneur, exit this page right now. If you are not married or in a serious relationship, turn this off right now. And it's not necessarily like, that's not who I want to talk to. It's just, this is my market and who I serve and who gets the most amount of value from what it is that I have. And there are enough people out there for me to have a multi-million-dollar business doing just this. Everybody else can listen for entertainment purposes only, but don't waste my time. And most entrepreneurs get caught in this idea of, I got an email from somebody who wants to talk about something. And that's a distraction. When you can operate from a position of, this is where I provide value, this is how I do it, this is who I attract and who gets the most value, and you operate from that, it starts small, but when you get clear about that, you start calling that into being, because your language changes to attract that person. The people that you attract start telling everybody else, I'm on a rant, so I'll just keep going here, Jay. But
Please, this is good.
The first event I ever did, the first high level event I ever did, guess how many people showed up?
12.
One person.
Okay.
One person showed up. And you know what I did? I called in my buddies and I was like, look, I had a promotion. Nobody came but one person. I'm just going to pour into his life for 3 days. So I called in friends and we just I taught those who were in the room some of my methodologies, and then I extracted some from the others, and we just invested into this guy, and he got amazing results in his business. And then we used that as the leverage point for getting the next round and the next round. And now we sell out every time because we built on that. And I wasn't afraid of asking for the sale and turning away people who weren't fit. And I think that is a skill that most entrepreneurs fail to develop.
Well, and especially at the beginning, for sure, because you're like, I think I need to talk to everybody. I want to give myself as much opportunity. Hopefully someone will buy, as opposed to I know who will buy and they will pay this and it's worth this and that much more. Those are different levels. So I'm going to take a stab and say you didn't start there.
Say, I don't follow.
That you didn't start with that thought process of dealing with just the most specific individuals. It's just that's been something you've developed over the term of your career.
That's it. Oh, I see what you mean. In my career, absolutely. This was like a muscle I had to build, and I had to work at it, and I had to say no to donuts, say no to distractions that were coming in and trying to get my attention. Absolutely, it was something I had to build, and something I had to make mistakes doing. I'm planning a big event for the end of this year. It's called Freedom Fastlane Live. We've sold hundreds of tickets, and I have these crazy, unbelievable speakers coming up. And I've made every mistake possible planning this event, Jay. But I decided I would do the first one and make all of the mistakes. Right. And then it would probably be the worst event I ever did because I would make all these mistakes, but I could never get through them if I wasn't willing to make the mistakes in the first place. It's the exact same thing as that first event where one person showed up. I put it out there and I made every mistake possible, and you have to get the worst one out of the way in order to go do the really, really good ones. You and I podcast. You've done, 50,000 episodes or whatever now. If you go back and listen to the first ones, you're probably embarrassed of them.
No, let's not do that. Let's not do that.
I'm embarrassed to listen to my early podcasts. They were the worst ones I ever did. Right. But you have to get through that in order to do the really excellent ones, like hopefully we're doing right now.
Yeah, well, hopefully we've learned a thing or two. Maybe it's a little bit better, more engaging, etc. And you bring up this concept or this concept that I want to dig into. Is it possible, because I've seen this person, that person exists, and hopefully you're listening right now, where they want to do something and they want to do something big. So they start to study and they're like, yeah, 100,000 a month. Well, okay, all this is great, but I've got to study first. And they try to reverse engineer out all the things that could possibly ever go wrong and never get started. So I want to know from your perspective, how valuable are errors and judgments, things that we call mistakes, failure events, to you?
Oh man, that's such a great question. How valuable are they? The example that comes to mind is, a ship going across the ocean is never always on track. It's always off track, and it's constantly correcting. And that's how I feel like my successes or my businesses. I never feel completely on track. And when I make a mistake, that's how I know to course correct. So I'd say that I'll just say making mistakes is worth $5 million because I would never have $5 million a year businesses if I didn't hit these walls and then course correct. What would happen, Jay, is I would get used to $5,000 or $10,000 a month, and then I would just coast. But by hitting walls and making mistakes, it throws me back into growth. And I'd actually say that it's not in spite of mistakes that I run, several multi-million-dollar businesses, it's because of the mistakes that I have grown those businesses.
Well, and I think there's one more piece to this whole thing is because I'm sure for some people, they're not a stranger to having made a mistake. They're a stranger to how to respond once they've recognized it. And I think that's also a skill set that must be developed as well, because there are times where, mistakes, they're not always fun, and they don't feel great, and they can be embarrassing, and then you still gotta clean up the mess. But you have continually decided, instead of running in a completely different direction, you're like, let's use this mistake. Where do you think that comes from?
I don't know where it comes from, except a very clear dedication to what I want on the other side of that. I mean, most of the time when we make a mistake, that mistake doesn't really impact the goal that we've set. It's just a setback on some detail for that. For example, I'll tell you one of the big mistakes I made in planning this big event is the venue is just completely not ideal. And we're moving forward anyway, and it was a mistake in planning on my part. But that doesn't prevent me from having an amazing event. That just prevents like a certain experience, and now I've got to change the experience so it's even more amazing. Or if a sales process doesn't go well, that doesn't prevent you from having a great product. The product could be completely amazing. Mm-hmm. You just need to change the thing that's a mistake right now. So it's pretty rare that the actual mistake prevents you from getting the goal. It just means that a process needs to be changed. There's a difference between failure and feedback. Feedback can be tweaked. Failure is you give up because you got bad data. And they're completely different. And if you see that something didn't, quote, work, it really just means it gave you bad feedback, and you can change the process and get different feedback.
Indeed. I've been to a number of different, I think I've been to the JW in Austin. It's a pretty nice hotel.
Yeah, there's some stories there, Jay. We can rap about a beer sometime.
That's cool. I would love to know, because now, see, this is me trying to I'm trying to prevent myself from doing the same thing, because I would have gone the exact same route. And now I'm like, let me learn Ryan real fast.
Yeah, I'll share some notes with you later.
So and here's the thing, guys. Our errors in judgment, these mistakes, these feedbacks, these are the things that become valuable, as you just heard, to other people. I mean, even if you go out there, you try to do something and you never get to the goal, your worst case scenario is you can write that ebook that says, don't do this before trying to do this, and that'll be valuable to somebody in some way, shape, or form. So, Ryan, this ability, we'll call it a skill set, not only to go after and obtain this feedback, but to respond to it properly. I would call that a very important skill set. What other skill sets do you think an entrepreneur must possess in order to make it to the point to where their business can grow to, $100,000 a month or more? The name of the game has been for quite some time gaining new skill sets. One of the reasons that I've seen many, many people not be able to become the entrepreneurs they want to be, not to be able to grow more, is because there's a new skill set that's required in order for you to actually expand and be able to serve more people. And it's different for all of us. Some of you maybe you're great at sales, but your people skills or people management skills aren't where they need to be. And maybe, you're really good at accounting, but you couldn't sell to save your life. But for others of us, it could be some things like leadership, and it could just be communication. Here's the point. The people you are looking to serve want the best version of you that you are willing to go out there and build, and you will never out-earn your personal growth. There's tons of skill sets, and I know that can seem like work, and it is, but I promise you, it's worth it. Get started on that process to build those skill sets by going over to CashFlowDiary.com/free book. I'm going to give you a free copy, electronic copy, of the book Cashflow Diary, 10 Steps to Creating Wealth in Any Economy. You'll be able to download it immediately or send a text message if you'd like to 72000-72000. The keyword is book, and you'll be able to get it as well. Either way it goes, it's going to start you on that journey to becoming a bigger, better, badder version of yourself. And I think you're going to like it too. So let's get back and hear what Ryan has to say about some of these necessary skill sets for you and I to continue to grow ourselves and to grow those businesses.
Yeah, so we've talked about the ability to say no. We've talked about getting comfortable making mistakes. Another thing that I practice that I think makes a difference, although it's a little bit more subtle, but when I compare myself to other entrepreneurs, I can feel its effects, is I regularly practice asking myself things that seem really ridiculous to me at the time. So saying, I make $100,000 a month to somebody, if depending on where their stance is at the moment, can completely baffle them, and they look at me like I have three heads. And that was me, 2 years ago. And when I started asking myself the question, how could I bring home $100,000 a month? That made me, first of all, get used to the question, get used to the idea, and second, find answers. Get my brain to look for those solutions. So now I like to journal before I go to bed, and sometimes I'll write, okay, if I wanted to turn this into $1 billion company, how would I do this? Now, it doesn't mean I have to do anything with it. It's just an exercise to get me thinking bigger and differently than how I'm currently showing up. And if I were to partner with this person, what would that look like? If I were to get the attention of so-and-so, if I were to have if I were to have 1 million downloads per episode on my podcast,
wow,
how would I go about doing that? So these are just the questions that I ask, and it's not so much to come up with solutions all the time, but to get my brain thinking bigger and taking practice in getting used to those numbers. Because when you get used to it, and it becomes demystified, then it becomes possible. As long as something seems impossible to you, it is, because you're not actually in tune with what it takes to do that. And so I like to demystify these big ideas and just practice that. And it's very subtle. It's more just like something I do at the end of the day. But I notice a difference when I compare myself to other entrepreneurs who are still mystified by thinking at a certain level. And I personally feel like I'm already way ahead of that just because I've spent time journaling about it.
Indeed. And I would agree. And we're going to talk about some other habits that I believe, or that youth believe, actually increase your ability to be successful. But I've got I'm a curious question right here is, do you find it difficult? Like, I know for me, this can be a challenge. Do you find it difficult now, especially when you're talking about business growth and revenue and things of that nature? Do you find it challenging to think in smaller numbers now? Like when you're talking to people, when you say 10, do you in your head, are you automatically thinking 10 million, 10,000, those types of things? And they're going, no, $10?
It reminds me of, I think the movie was Richie Rich with Macaulay Culkin, and they bet him that he can't hit a home run, and they say, "We'll bet you 10." He says, 10,000? All right, I'll take you up on that bet. And they say, "No, $10."
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, yes, it definitely becomes harder to think that way, but easier to advise somebody who is there. So if somebody brings like, I just want to make $10,000 a month, it's like, oh, okay. Right. Well, the fastest way you can do that is by setting your targets on $100,000 a month, because then 10,000 just becomes like something in your path that you get past. What a buddy of mine, Grant Cardone, talks about, he calls it the 10x rule. You're gonna fail at whatever goal you set. So do you want to fail at getting $1 million a month, or do you want to fail at $10,000 a month? Because whatever you set your targets on, for a while, you're going to fall short on them.
Yeah.
So you might as well set your goal way above what you are really shooting towards, because then you'll actually align properly. So if you shoot for 10, you'll probably hit 8. But if you shoot for 100, you'll probably hit 80.
Right.
And which one do you want to hit? Because they're just numbers, and it's just as hard to get both. So you might as well just go for the bigger one.
Well, and what I like about that is that it automatically causes you to start to think outside of I to we, and beginning to think, I can't do this by myself, but we together could, and your brain has to go into a completely different, stage of thinking. I mean, we could simply be applying this to a lemonade stand on the corner. If I just take my kids, okay, that's one level of revenue. But then I ask my children, well, hey, how can we sell 1 million gallons of lemonade a weekend? It could still be run by my kids, but they got to come up with a different system, a different way of making that distribution happen. And that's a whole lot of lemonade. But and by asking that question that way, I absolutely love it. Now, I too do journaling as well, and I think it provides. It's kind of hard to say what it does, but it does something, and it's very, very useful. And you're not the only one in this series to have mentioned journaling. And it's funny how consistent these things are, regardless of industry, regardless of male, female, etc. Some of the habits that we have. So, other than journaling, what else might you say you do consistently that helps you either, stay in balance, helps you stay at your peak performance, helps you actually be clear so that you can go out there and serve as many as possible?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question, because so many people miss all of the things that round out you as a person that prepare you to be a successful entrepreneur. And journaling is one of those for me. I would say that fitness is another one. I make more money when I feel my best, have more energy, and are in great shape. It's easier for me to ask for the big sale when I'm in tip-top shape and have eaten right versus having just eaten an entire pizza and a piece of cake. I make more money when I'm healthier and vice versa. So that is definitely one of those habits. And I would say maintaining my relationships, both personal and professional. For example, I think one of the greatest lost arts there is ROI attached to it, is writing handwritten notes, handwritten thank you notes, and showing genuine appreciation for people. When somebody inspires you in some way, if someone influences you in some way, in our world, a handwritten note goes a long way. And it's probably one of the greatest sources of ROI that is overlooked. And because it actually takes effort. And that's why it makes an impact too. And then beyond that, I'd say just reading or being around people who make me think differently. I can read a book written by Mark Cuban, or I can go hang out with the CEO who makes $100 million a year. Same thing in my mind. Getting around people who, by being around them, it shifts the way that you have to think. So all combined, I think those are the things that round out me as a person and prepare me to go to the next level in life and business.
Well, and the thing that I want to illustrate by asking, these types of questions is that oftentimes, someone is looking for a 12-step system, a 12-step process that's going to make it happen in 7 days or less. And I can hear it in your voice already. What would you say to that person looking for that, we'll call it silver bullet?
Well, it just doesn't exist. I mean, you are the silver bullet, and you have to become that. There is no outside thing that by plugging into it, you get a certain result. Like this one personal friend of mine was at my house once, and he's like, "Can you show me just exactly what you did so that I can produce exactly the same result?" I was like, "Okay, great. Hire my entire team,
right?
And go back 8 years, and it just doesn't exist, right? And you have to become that silver bullet rather than expecting it to be some magical thing that exists outside of you."
We're dashing a lot of hopes and dreams right now.
Well, good. Because I wanted it too when I started. So I get the desire for it. It's just not a real thing. It's just like I believed when I started as an entrepreneur that there would be this day where I would arrive at which I had no more problems and there was no more worry about money and everything was fun and easy and I could retire to the beach. That too does not exist. So we can have these ideas of these hopes and dreams of everything being magical, but that's just not what happens. So we might as well be honest about it because then we can manage it and we can actually do something with it.
I can hear the sounds of balloons and dreams bursting right now.
Oh, good.
Because it's funny how common, there are so many common things that we all think. It's like, if I just get here, everything will be perfect.
Yeah.
And here is kind of esoteric, undefined, and doesn't exactly ever come into being. So I find this interesting as well, that we all do this to ourselves. It's like some form of weird torture.
Yeah, and what's interesting is we put these kind of goals in the way of how we want to feel, and
Yes.
it's such a disservice to our happiness. Like the good news in all of this is when you believe, I want to make $100,000 a month so that I can feel X, Y, and Z. You can feel X, Y, and Z in the next 5 minutes. That's a thought. You can make that happen immediately. So the goal just becomes a goal. It has no more meaning or attachment to it. So when you can disassociate the emotion from the goal, then it doesn't become a big deal anymore. I want to make $100,000 a month so that I can feel X, Y, and Z. Well, I already feel X, Y, and Z. So now this thing is just a goal.
Right.
And now I don't have this heaviness and tenseness around it. When I hit that point, when I was able to disassociate this, somebody pointed this out to me. I didn't think it was a big deal, but they pointed out how big of a shift it was. I told them, I'm not attached to the result anymore, so I'm really swinging for the fences now. And they were like, "Man, I wish I had that same confidence." I was like, "Confidence? It's all kind of might be recklessness. I don't even know. I'm taking these big risks in my business now, and all this cool stuff is showing up as a result because now I'm just focused on doing really excellent things, and I don't really care what happens because I know that they're excellent." And coming from that stance, man, higher level clients and customers and people just show up differently when you're just after something excellent and you're not really attached to the result. And the goal that you have is just a goal because there's no heaviness around it anymore. That sounds all esoteric and like woo-woo, but when you can operate from that stance of like, I don't need this result. This is my goal. And I'm creating this awesome, excellent thing. This for my clients and customers and everyone around me. And I believe this is going to give me to that goal. But my focus is on making this really excellent, and you don't have this neediness, hitting that goal becomes a lot easier.
Indeed. And speaking of, serving individuals and having excellent things happen to you and influential relationships, I'm curious to know how the new little one has influenced your thought processes these last few months in terms of what it is that you now wish to accomplish and who you wish to serve.
What's strange is that she's not influencing me. She's 3 months old and she hasn't influenced me so much in the last 3 months. But when I found out that I was going to be a dad, I fundamentally changed. I don't know what it was. I know John Lee Dumas calls it the baby effect. You just suddenly grow up when you find out that you're going to be a dad and you start. But I think what happened for me was because I tripled my income when I found out I was going to be a dad.
Yeah.
And I think what happened for me was that all of a sudden I just became locked in and in tune to what was valuable and what was producing a result, and really locked into the opportunity in front of me rather than waffling between idea to idea to idea and never really bunkering down. And from a practical standpoint, I think that's what happened. I don't know what biologically what happened. I don't know. Maybe it's like you see your legacies, so you start thinking further out. I don't know, but something fundamentally definitely changed when I found out.
Exactly. It's like your kids change you in ways you can't really articulate or explain. You just know I'm different and everything is more serious.
I'm sure that you can tell me the types of changes I'll experience in the next 5 years or so.
I absolutely can. My oldest is 18 and started college last year, and boy, is she having fun. That's air quotes with everything that goes with that. So yeah, if you can think about that, that's in your future. So you're just like, oh no, I'll just take what I've got right now. Yeah. So were you able to get the car seat in the car? How did that go?
Well, I was told I did it wrong.
Yeah, that sounds right.
I got it in there, but I was told that it was wrong, and I was like, "Well, it's kind of like when I was growing up. I was told that I put the toilet paper on upside down. I was like, it's still there. I mean, isn't that what's most important? If the car seat's there, it's supposed to be different. I don't know.
Yeah, I know. I wish there was like classes or something. It's just like it's supposed to be a simple car seat, but yet it's the most complicated device on the planet to put in your car that first time, and it's always it becomes this source of like argument or something. You're like, I know I did it right. No, you didn't. Anyway, I was just wondering how you fared on that test.
I failed.
Yeah, that sounds about right then. Cool, you're on track. So this is good. Yeah, this is good. So when it comes to looking at the marketplace today, when you see what, the opportunities, the technologies, the things that exist today, for someone listening right now, starting from absolute ground zero, what would be their path to getting to $100,000 a month?
Oh, man. I think it starts with being really clear on what your product or your service is, and second, who the target market that is willing to pay the most money for that product or service is. And there are a lot of systems that you can develop in between those two things. For example, I have businesses that are, largely based on Amazon.com. That's a system, that's a channel, but that doesn't define what my product or service is and who it is that we're targeting. Mm-hmm. I have entrepreneurs that pay me a lot of money for coaching, and I target them through my podcast, and I target them through Facebook and email marketing. Those are channels. Those are systems, but they don't affect who I am targeting and what it is that I'm doing to provide value. And I think most people are looking for the hack through the channel or the system rather than developing the answer to the question of who am I serving and how am I serving them. So step one, define what it is that your product or service is. Step two, define who would benefit the most and therefore pay the most. And then step three, what channel can I leverage in order to get me the leads and customers that I can use to do this effectively? So if you're clear that you've got some sort of a widget in the marketplace that is going to serve this person, then you start looking at, okay, where do people buy physical products? They buy them on Amazon, they support them on Kickstarter, they go to retail. These are all channels that you can focus on. Now we've solved like a year's worth of guesswork that most people spend in figuring business out. If you're an information marketer and you are creating an information product and you're serving a certain market, you can go to ClickBank, or you can have an event, or there's how you provide that value. When that's clear, then the channel becomes really obvious. And I love channels for leads and customers. That's why I podcast and put it on iTunes. That's why I sell physical products on Amazon. That's why we leverage affiliates or develop our own lists. But that doesn't change who we're targeting and where the value is coming from. So by answering those questions, I think you get a lot more momentum than people who are just trying to figure out whatever makes money.
Yes, and that is indeed clearly important because it's not just about, I mean, I'm assuming it ceased being about money for you a long time ago.
I mean, money is it to me. It's data that shows me if I'm in the right direction. Like if I were to stop making decisions based on money, I don't think that I would provide as much value. You know, when somebody comes up to me and says like, I want to give you my last $100 to give me XYZ result, the likelihood is that I probably can't serve that person very well. What I do is probably not a fit for that person. Whereas somebody says, here's $100,000 for X, Y, and Z, and I don't need that much time. Yes, that makes me excited from like my ego is all excited. I'm going to have $100,000 show up. But the fact of the matter is I can provide more value for that person because the 2 tweaks that I'm going to make to their business will allow them to hire more people, inspire more clients and customers. And as a result, the ripple effect of what you do is much bigger. And money is a reflection of that. It's a reflection of that ripple effect. And it's not just about the money in my pocket or in my bank account, but it is a clear indicator of where I'm providing the most value. So it's a reflection of that. So it is about the money, but it's not necessarily about me getting the same rush from the money that I used to.
Understood. Completely understood. Now, before we get to our final question here, I'm guessing that there's a number of individuals who either A, are going to track down episode 56 and want to hear more from you, but in case they don't do that, why don't you share with us how they can, stalk you online, figure out what you're doing, and possibly even show up at this event in Austin later this year?
Yeah, cool. So the event is Freedom Fastlane Live, freedomfastlanelive.com, where we have Robert Herjavec from Shark Tank, Gary Vaynerchuk, the billionaire founder of Priceline.com, multi-million-dollar investor Grant Cardone. We have everybody, Pat Flynn, pretty much everybody who's speaking is a keynote speaker, and that's in Austin, Texas. It's way underpriced, and you can take advantage of the fact that it's my first event and priced it way under. There's a mistake. That was good data, Jay.
Yeah.
But you can find me on my podcast. It's on iTunes. It's called Freedom Fastlane.
Excellent. So, but kind of last question here, kind of put the two together. What would you say are those fundamental beliefs that carry you consistently through the ups and downs, the bad days, and the excitement stuff? As well as, what would you say to that person who's having trouble right now thinking, man, I would love to have a business, or I would love for my business to double, or I would love to finally go into this new line of business, but they're just having that trouble making those things happen?
I'm going to answer your second question first.
Okay.
And that question, the question of, you've got an idea or you've had lots of ideas, but you've had trouble making it happen. It's really quick and easy to test an offer. And I get a lot of pushback when I say that, but it doesn't take long to call up your target market or to put up a squeeze page and actually talk to those leads and say, if this existed, would it be worthwhile for you? If this was a thing, would you pay money for it? It's not hard to do that. It takes a day to test a business idea. And when you do that, you have your first line of customers sitting in front of you. So get comfortable with the idea of just testing new stuff or those ideas that you got kicking around. Because when you test them, that's feedback and data that you can use to move into the business that you're thinking about starting. As far as the beliefs that I carry to make it possible to move forward, I think the biggest one is that this is going to sound so weird, and I even hesitate to say this, but like, there is no thing. Like, we put a lot of constructs in our brain around ideas, but we just make them up. So $1 million a month doesn't mean anything. It's just a goal. Or success isn't even a real thing. It's not a thing. It's just an idea that we make up. It's really just a comparison between what we don't want and something that we do want. So the fact that there is no like outside thing beyond what we make up makes it easy for me to say, yeah, I'd like that. And then you just make a decision of if you want to commit to that thing and do what's necessary to get that thing or not. And it doesn't matter either way, whether you make $100,000 a month or you make $1,000 a month. It doesn't, there's no like meaning in the universe that says one is better than the other. It's just which one do you want? So when you remove all of the emotion or the fluff from it, you just pick out what you want and then you go after those things and you do what's necessary to get those things. And if you don't want them, it's totally fine. It doesn't mean anything. It's just that's what you are creating in your life. And that's what shows up as a result. And that, forgive me for being all woo-woo in the sky about it, but that belief has served me.
Understood. Well, I would sum that up by saying we just make success too darn difficult.
Amen to that.
So I want to say that I know that you and I, we could probably keep talking about this for a very long time, but I'm sure that they're ready to go take some action and make things happen. I just want to thank you again for taking the time to invest your information, your expertise, your knowledge, and your energy here with us at the Cashflow Diary.
Hey, thanks so much for having me back.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you know what time it is. It's time for you to move at the speed of instruction. You've been given great resources. You know that the freedom fast, you know you want freedom and you know you want it fast. So go get it. Freedom Fast Lane, go listen to the podcast, go find the website. And you know, sometimes some of you should go ahead and take that next step. Be at that event, make it happen, because you never know who you're going to meet, and most importantly, how it's going to inspire you to change your life and give yourself the permission to step into the greatness that you were born to be. It's been fun talking to you guys today. I look forward to talking to you soon. Until next time.